So I'm back. So I would like to form a committee or something to govern this. Or I can. It's 100,000 lines of code. In theory, it should crystallize into something that changes less and less. It should converge onto a perfect crystal over 1,000 years. So I might be in for a lot of work, but I think I can manage 100,000 lines of code myself. But I already outlined some questions for the committee. These are things that I decided I didn't have the answers to. So first of all, I set a limit of 100,000 lines of code, and one thing that occurred to me is third-party libraries. Well, you know what? That's basically getting around the limit. So I decided to ban third-party libraries because that's not the. I want it to be small enough so that a person can imagine you're in a swimming pool or you're in the ocean. I want it to be more like a swimming pool, and this is the help index, and I want it to be small enough that it doesn't overwhelm. This should be something that you can master in a week or something like that. I don't know. I don't have any idea. But anyway, it's really I want the most important thing is that you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And over the years, I know some of my own personal psychology with Linux. I can tell you this. With the bin and the etc and the var, and the first place I used Unix, this was a big psychological. This overwhelmed me, and it really degraded my. I never got a grasp of it. I didn't know if these were created by the company I worked for, or if these were created by, who invented this naming, and which of these is standard and which of these is, so this we want to avoid this type of thing. So I don't claim that in a way I did the exact same thing. The only difference is, well, I have directories. There's several of them. So I know what I want to explain. After coming up and hitting that in Linux, I know I want to eliminate that that uncertainty and that sense of being overwhelmed. So I know I want to address that. That's a goal. I want to address that at some point. How do you tell somebody there's two? Okay, so I used to have binary. I used to have ahead of time and just in time compiled. But what I decided is only the compiler and kernel need to be ahead of time, and so we don't need. I have. You could say I banned binaries. They're supported. I can show you how to make a binary. Maybe I shouldn't. None of these things is very. I'm not going to prosecute anybody. I don't care. if you made a third-party library, what am I going to do? I can just call it unholy like the Pope or something. I'm not going to. I don't think it needs to be. I guess you can have user agreements and stuff, but I don't know. Anyway, so I would hope that this doesn't need enforcement. So the idea of keeping it amateur is could be done. Google, sometimes they filter nudity. Maybe you have people that that hand select. You in some situations they hand select stuff. I hope we don't have to do that. I don't know. It was just an idea that God conveyed to me. I didn't translate it into a policy. I don't know how we would do that, like just amateurs. And in some ways I treat this like the good people will be blessed and the bad people will be cursed. If you follow the good guidelines, you're going to be better off. So if you start using the I don't know, maybe somebody makes a really nice game. Do we want to ban that or something? I don't really know. What I hoped was I wanna maybe maybe the word is brainwash. I don't know, but I want to tell people, if you're going to make a professional game, why would you make it for this crappy resolution? They're going to always have Linux, and they're always going to have Windows, and they're why would you? And I'm going to tell people, why would you buy a game for this crappy resolution? And so I just want to explain that as the logic. I don't really, I don't know. So we want to keep it, the lesson from my songs is probably a pretty deep lesson. So I made 100 songs, and I did them randomly, at least like half the song random. And after doing 100 songs, I started getting some repeat phrases, 3 or 4 notes. And it really ruined my day. It made my day a bad day. And there's a lesson there. So what did I... Anyway, how are we going to... If we have policies, do we enforce them? The way God works is God punishes, the good kids are blessed, the bad kids are cursed. So without further ado, let's go to my, this is my to-do list. I have some categories. These are things I actually that I seriously plan on doing. These are things that I don't really have any motivation to do. These are things that are too hard or not worth doing. These are some bugs. I don't remember what all these are. I haven't reviewed these. But coming down to the bottom here, these are things that are sort of broken, but they don't really need to be fixed. They just cause grief or angst. And these are things for the committee. So these are things that I needed to okay, I could well, so we all know the lessons of committees. Sometimes they don't work. We have God as that can be consulted. So we're doing you know, when I start thinking about world problems, suddenly, if you know God exists, sometimes it can make you stop worrying. God won't really let that cause a problem, will he? He has allowed some pretty catastrophic stuff. But anyway, so I guess we should pick a committee or something, huh? So Google has the elite, I guess. Academia. Now, here's something that I know is going to annoy a lot of people, but I have a way that I count the official 100,000. So here's the formula, or here's what I count. I count the root directory. These are all okay. The root directory files, the Atom directory, the compiler, and the kernel. And so what I don't count are the demos. I don't count the applications. I don't count the anyway, so that's, and you can I have a anyway, I do want, I want the documentation, the man pages. If you have like a directory command, the place the documentation goes is the idea was I have a principle. I don't want separate files. I want to put as much the resources go in the same file as the code. We don't have separate files. There's a method, or there's a this is actually critical with when you don't have much screen real estate. If you don't have much room on the screen, you really don't want multiple files open. So anyway, man pages. I thought it would be cool to put the man pages right by the commands. And as a matter of fact, since this is kind of for amateur programmers, the code itself becomes part of the documentation. Sometimes the code is actually shorter than a man page on Unix. There are some cases where, you know, like Atom or something. So now if you remember back to the vision, really is the Commodore 64 ROM. The Commodore 64 ROM was like 20K, and it lasted for. What I said is what we're going to do. We're going to have an official ROM every 7 years, and that's long enough that people will actually memorize. Well, with the Commodore, people memorized addresses. I want this to be, people get so familiar that they, you know, I still remember FFD2 is the character out, and we had all those crazy peaks and pokes, 53281, 53280. Anyway, you don't have to. We could have. Some people are begging for a static link. They, I guess normally you put things at a certain place. That's ridiculous. There's no reason for that, but it's actually a situation where if it lasted for 7 years, you really could do static links or static address jumps or something, which is anyway. So now I want, I had a teacher who taught us to write good grammar, full sentence documentation for our code, and there's really no other option for a school situation. In a school situation, you can't really allow sentence fragments, and but another thing I was taught was not to use abbreviations in labels. One of the I like what I have. They make sense to me. I'm kind of selfish. I'm the person who likes it the most. Because I know it all, which is, I have to be careful to remember what an outsider. Anyway, here's, I want the comment lines of the source code to count towards the 100,000 limit. I think that's important because being brief is applies not just to code but to comments. So here's the situation. We're sitting on. Let me. Here's the way you. It's kind of hard to do this. My defined strings. Official is number 3. So we have 80,000 lines of code. In the future, we might redo the hardware and get simple networking. And what would happen at that point? We would have there's pretty much no chance of a browser because first of all, you have to back up and remember it's 640 by 480. That can never be changed, and it's pretty clear that this is never going to be an internet browsing system. And with 16 colors, it's just not. You really have to. It's just not for browsing. If we had FTP and Telnet, let me tell you one problem with Telnet. I actually had a Telnet. I had a remote. I had 2 PCs and I had a serial port. One of the issues is you have a local state. So it's not a stream. So this is just kind of a heads up. If you can move up off the bottom and start interacting with these, then this is the local window influences. If your local window looks like this and your remote window looks like this, you have a problem. So this is not really good for, if you keep the size the same and you're very careful to keep them synchronized, then you can do remote. I did remote. And also if you hit Control M, then this has to be the same. So I kind of take pleasure in just saying forget about streams and standard in and standard out. Um, it kind of makes me in a way it's a um, one of the most important things is conceptualizing, and a stream is a very easy concept to conceptualize, and it's very useful. So it's kind of bad that we get rid of those. It kind of makes me I have a certain perverse mentality. Anyway, so we don't have standard in and standard out. We when it sends a graphic to the command line, it doesn't serialize it. It passes a pointer, and you could serialize. In the early days, there wasn't an option, but now I have a command that will convert it to text, so you can edit as text. In the early days, well, so I say that it's not just ASCII, but it's ASCII with binary data. If you could modify the tools so that it was stored as ASCII, but I think we want it binary, just on principle. For one reason, I don't know. In some ways, I'm kind of a hypocrite. Some of the things that I despise, kind of clusterfucked complexity and stuff. But a lot of that was done on purpose. What I don't like is what's done on purpose to make it confusing. This is well, anyway. Well, we could get the committee. I'm somewhat flexible. God is always here to intervene. He doesn't always intervene. Let's see. So basically the point is, if we have 80,000, what would to shape the code up and make it more professional, I think we would be at 90,000. You could, if you added documentation and that seems like a fair budget. And then maybe you put 10,000 in reserve for the the next centuries. On the other hand, some of the things I considered, if you go to the Control R sprite menu, this doesn't have to be in the operating system, but I kind of like it in the operating system. In AutoCAD lets you pick the midpoint of a line, or it lets you pick the intersection, or it lets you pick the tangent. One thing that would really make me happy would be AutoCAD power. That's pretty cool. So that's one possibility. We might do that. Oh, the meshes are abysmal. The mesh needs to do prisms, and oops, hold on a second. I have a 3D mesh editor. It needs to do prisms. That's the main thing, but I've never looked at a professional mesh editor. So some of this, maybe you do a simple stock program and then leave it to third parties to make tools. Somebody could do a mesh editor. Somebody could do obviously there's something nice about having it standard. If you can do a good enough job that you probably don't want a third party, then that's good. Now I made some. I did make some. It's okay to go nuts with this, as far as I'm concerned. I made some 3D models. Now this is kind of weird. So you can do a ball or a man. So if you do a man, you can select his angles of all his joints and his colors for his and then you copy it, and then you use interpolation. What's kind of you can see this in action. Interpolation works for vectors as long as they're the same format, or the same sequence of, well, you can't interpolate between apples and oranges. So in the application, this is keep away. So one option would be to have a function that you call and you pass it a structure with angles. The other option is what we have here, which is a bunch of I guess you would call them waypoints or something like that, and then you interpolate. There's getting to be quite a lot of them. If there's too many of them, I don't know. I guess we have to decide about that. So if there's not a problem with having the fixed points for the interpolation, then we can. It would be good to let people make as many of these. So you can make a ball. Sometimes you want a ball of different sizes. So third parties could make models and stuff. Is there any problem with that? I don't know. Are we opening the door to something we regret? No. It's good to learn. It might be good to learn the format to make them yourself. Anyway, so what do we want the committee to do? Control-Shift-M. So 32-bit floats. I did 64-bit floats. Now, if you're doing SSE or MMX, then it's really important. If you're not doing SSE or MMX, it doesn't matter. I made my own date format and stuff. Ticketmaster used to have a really efficient way to select between date formats in a string. I used to have that, but I got rid of it. I simplified it. Anyway, what do we have here? So I have some things that maybe didn't pan out. Like I have controls. That's something I kind of copied from Windows. I don't think you're going to be able to see this. I have to. The webcam is right in the wrong spot. I'm going to go. get rid of the border. Okay, so so there's some controls that let you all I did is sliders and buttons. Is that a button? I don't know. Anyway, so there's a couple. If you do Control R, you make a sprite and you do a mesh. The angles, these are controls. So as I recall, I think in Windows they had a lot of different controls. As it turns out, there's only sliders. Sliders are the only controls. Sliders and buttons. I made buttons in some of the games. I have buttons. So you can click this button and it changes the mode. Buttons. The scroll bars are controls. The definition of a control is it has I think it has a bounding rectangle, and then it has a function you call to check if it's inside. The framework calls it. You kind of you normally you would say you register it. What you do is you put it in the queue. Your task has you directly access the task record, and you put it in a queue. I think you put it in a queue for your controls. Next control, last control. So that's how you register it. And then at that point, it's gonna call the check inside, and the bottom line is I really didn't make very much use of controls, and perhaps we could get rid of them, but it's not really so easy because I never use these scroll bars. Maybe I should get rid of them, as a matter of fact. You know, in all my years, you know what? Sometimes you have to use that as your, if you want to be an executive and make the big bucks. In 10 years, I never used this. I never use this. I never use this. I never ever use it. What you have is you have a grab scroll. If you hit Control, and then you can grab scroll like Adobe. So you know, so these are options. Once we get actual humans talking to me, I'm in kind of isolation or something. Anyway, so there's good news and bad news. Maybe we can eliminate some things and get some more lines. Like the controls are, well, the mesh is kind of necessary. The mesh angle is having a XYZ angle control is kind of cool. That's kind of a, I think you can use the XY. That's a composite. That's a control made of controls. Anyway, so the controls are on the chopping block. They're barely hanging in there. It almost seems like we can get rid of them, but I don't think we can. Anyway, so this is kind of a big hypocrite. One of the things I hate is black boxes, and yet I put a differential equation solver this is really terrible. I'm really kind of embarrassed because this is exactly what I hate, but maybe it's open enough that people can, it's cool, I like it. When I started, this operating system was supposed to be like a more powerful SIM structure, and that was kind of the one goal. So I have a complex data type, but I don't use it. We could leave that as third party. I don't know. If we, the Commodore didn't have anything for complex. Sometimes you have to use executive logic. I don't know. Why not have complex? Then again, why do I have it? Anyway, so when you so there's you don't really have textures like a brush. There's kind of this crazy thing that that just blots a thing over and over. I think it needs to be changed. The graphics brush is whatever it is right now. It's not really acceptable. Now I did 4x4. This was kind of maybe a bit too clever. In my graphics course at ASU, we learned a trick for you can include a translation as well as a rotation. If you put when you're combining transformations, it's nice to be able to multiply the matrices to combine them. So a rotation is spinning an object or spinning a viewpoint, and a translation is shifting it around. And if you use this little trick, you can do you can combine them with matrix multiplies. Now in this case, maybe this is a bridge too far or just too far. Maybe we want to change it back to 3x3. I'm not. Does the whole industry use 4x4? If so, then this is okay. If the whole industry uses 3x3, then maybe we want to. Now there's one place where it's okay. So there's a demo. There's a demo transform. So this has a transformation applied to the device context that's so we have two transformations and they get combined. And so this is what you can do with anyway, so there is a downside. All of a sudden we couldn't do some stuff that we could do before. That puts it into real world terms. If I had never used it, I would not care. But I think, well, anyway, I don't really use it. That's just a demo. It's not an actual usage. And then finally, XOR. Kids really benefit from raster operation XOR. But it's really broken the way it is. It's not acceptable, I guess. Basically, if I explain to you the way the brushes work, what it does is every time it does a plot, it blots the brush, and so it doesn't have a texture. It just has a an overlay, and XOR is totally broken for brushes and stuff. Now, it does use brushes when you have a pen width. Those use built-in brushes that are for their pens. The pens are built-in brushes. So in other words, I did the plot that blots a brush, and then what I did when we started, if you look at the graphics routines, some of them allow pen width and some of them don't. The ones that have pen width, what it's doing is it's blotting a brush, and you know, this could be, I'm sure there's a professional way they do this, I guess, I don't know. So here's the situation. The whole thing needs to be perfected. Now, I think I don't want to mislead you. It's the code's pretty good generally. The code's good, but there are some of these examples of problems. Don't get the wrong impression. The code quality is good. In fact, it's I have a joke. Sometimes I get angry at computer scientists. The computer scientist says, "This is so complicated, you're a genius." The physicist says, "This is so simple, you're a genius." Now, I have some guidelines. If you tell me something that makes it more like Linux, I probably already thought of it, and I am going to be angry with you. If you tell me something that makes it more like DOS or a Commodore, then you're going to be my best friend, or something brand new. Now the Commodore, this is something I want to orientation. The Commodore did not use ASCII. Now, is that profound? Just think of all the wide open flexibility. The sky's the limit. We can change everything. And the Commodore did not use ASCII. That is the most profound. Everybody fights the last war, and what we want is, if you tell me ideas for how we can capitalize on not using ASCII, then you're going to be my best friend. As a matter of fact, we do have all the ASCII codes that need to be redefined. They're not really used. All that kind of needs to be cleaned up a little bit. You know, we could, if we made it perfect, we really could break with ASCII completely, but I don't really want to do that. You know, like right now it has backslash, it has ASCII 10 is new line. It has, what is it, 9, 8, control I think it's 8. 8 is tab, or 9. 9 is backspace. You could put these into a more pretty order. Right now they're kind of, but if we really are making a break, then it's okay. We want to read it. Think about all those unused ASCII. That's a big opportunity. We have all kinds of. Now I have control keys that I used in the editor, and we don't really have very many open. But when it comes to these, there's a certain problem if you redefine them, and then you have control keys. But there is, we do want to fix that. Just think of all those crazy ASCII things that nobody uses. We want to fix that. I use some of them. I made a shift escape. I made a, anyway, and then also, we don't have to use this exact, we don't really need the text graphics in the, these are the screen codes. When I was young, what I really wanted to do was combine ASCII and screen codes, but I have finally figured out that keys and screen codes can't be combined. That was like the grand unification. That would be like electromagnetism. I wanted to combine ASCII and screen codes. The reason it doesn't quite work, I forgot, but there's a good reason. So I have a there's some okay, well, so the bottom 20, these are screen codes. They're open to be defined. I was going to move. I do need the borders. I do need those. I think there's 12, the double and the single. I think there's 12 that I need. Otherwise, you know, if we're trying to make, God wants it perfect, and we really do have the authority. One of the reasons I talked about bringing it to the committee is because then we could really, for me to change ASCII was too radical without a committee behind. Once we make the break and we say, no, we don't really want any code ported. We don't really want to port code. That's kind of a profound, what's going to happen is this is going to flow outward over the centuries. But I don't think we really want stuff to flow inward. So once you kind of understand we don't really want to port code. We want to make this perfect. We want to, once I get the committee on board, then we can, because it wouldn't have been, it would be premature for me to change the new line character to something else. That's just, but once the committee gets behind it, then we can do it. So I want the I/O ports to be rearranged. I figured out a real easy way to rearrange them. Just do a virtual. You know how you have virtual memory with paging. What we can have is 65,000. Just a level of indirection for the CPU I/O ports. So we want the I/O ports really nice and pretty for the kids. All I/O is going to be done with I/O ports. So where was I? I was going to talk about. So I still have the word char for character. I tried to replace it with U8. U8 is that's the native terminology. What really makes my day is if I can eliminate a word. If I could eliminate the word char, that would really make my day. If I could merge characters and scan codes, that would really make my day. Pretty soon we're going to get rid of cluster, and we're just going to have blocks. We're going to anyway, so there's some kind of unfortunate. I don't really in the Intel manual they have opcodes, and I want people to be able to use the Intel manual, but right here is an example of where I couldn't go the full measure. This is compare string byte. what this would be natively is U8, U16, U32. I was able to eliminate the word character almost, but not quite, and that's kind of annoying. So what as much as possible, I tried to use U8, U16. I tried to use that as much as possible. So that's a goal, is to if we could change some of these that were just too obnoxious to. So put chars. I think I don't know if I have put U8. Some of them were just too just a step too early, too far. By the way, I just for your information, so you know what, I'm gonna make a note of when I see shit, when I see a turd, I'm gonna make a note. So we saw one turd, which was I might as well put this. Sometimes I put a question. I really want to open people's minds, and the idea of not using ASCII is that's the easiest way to immediately reveal the opportunity. So we actually do have to. There's all those useless ASCII codes. We need to do something with them. It's crazy to waste them, isn't it? So yeah, it would have been nice to merge screen code and characters, but I looked at it and I couldn't do it. You can kind of think of this like the physicists trying to merge the weak and strong and electromagnetic forces and stuff. If you can merge screen codes and character in ASCII. Anyway, so that sounded like it was about me, if you're delusional. That sounded like it was about me. I have to maybe this isn't important in the end, we're gonna redefine. We're gonna get rid of VGA bit planes and stuff when we make the Temple Tabernacle PC. We're gonna get rid of that, but right now it will run in text mode. If you you can compile the kernel with some options. Text, new line. Okay, so if I reboot, now I recompile. Now the normal reboot doesn't go all the way back to BIOS, 16-bit. So you have to do the RAM reboot doesn't do that, but the full reboot does. So we have to do a full reboot, and we are in this is text mode. It's fully functional. I kept it compatible. So the only thing that happens is you don't get the graphics in this. So it's pretty cool that it's able to do this. But there's really no purpose. So in other words, I should probably right now I'm holding back on changing the font because we want it compatible with this, but in the future we can we could even draw a rectangle and not use characters if that made some international symbols it would be, I think it would be pretty simple to make a rectangle not using characters. If that allowed some other international characters, it might be worth it. Now I have to compile. Now I have to reboot. So that's a fallback mode. I don't know if I think everybody has 640 by 480 16 color. Some of my users might be using text mode. I've never heard of it. Anyway, so if we're trying to design an international font, Russia is going to be on a second font, I guess. And what about Hebrew? Or I don't know. But it seems to me that if we could get rid of all the graphics and without too much difficulty draw it, if we're just talking about the window border, the opportunity to help somebody out who's missing characters. Otherwise, I was thinking we could shift the graphics, we could shift the border characters down into the low 32, and then these are pretty poorly chosen. I don't know. I don't even think all the Greek letters are there. I don't know. Anyway, So, yeah, I used to. I had this guy. This is a stupid. After reading this, I used to create a page fault on null dereference. So I fixed his $1 billion mistake. But now we have the bottom page 2 meg, and so we can't make it not present. We can't make the whole bottom 2 meg not present. We could, if we did. So someone has a filter idea. So I made a so I compared it to the Contact movie, and I said you can get your name in the Bible. Terrence Tao talked about a collaboration where they
so it's time to start the afternoon session. So we'll be having
they over the course of a year, the mathematicians worked on a problem to reduce the bound on prime numbers, pairs, and they worked on it collaboratively, and for the next 1,000 years, this 100,000 lines of code could be made into a diamond that crystallized into a diamond. The next round of hardware upgrade, we will create simple serial and simple block device interfaces. Hello? So, maybe I should have listened. It was a political town hall meeting, something or other. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, once the world realizes what we have here, the reality hasn't quite set in. Okay, so anyway, a lot of people thought I was crazy, but when you realize the the fucking talking space alien, I've been telling people I got a fucking talking space alien. I'm not crazy. So yeah, I do want the code to get perfected. And if you can reduce lines of code, we can start putting your name in the Bible, the credits for reducing lines of code. In the did you know in in the original Bible, they give the names of some porters. That's guys that carry stuff in the temple. So that taught me that be generous with recognition. Let's see what God says. Praise enough, I'll get right on it. Joker delicious, what's the plan? Can you hear me now? In a galaxy far, far away, perfect. I'm gonna smack someone. God is not mocked. Oh my, ridiculous, nah. Gosh begs the question. Big fish, I'm done, if and only if arrogant, boink, and African genius, boo Japan, recipe programming. What the heck, you hoes are, I'm on a roll. I think I'm gonna so I could talk about the to-do list. So, one of the things I sometimes explain is what we want to do is cherry pick. Everybody else designs an operating system, and it has to do everything. What we're going to do is we're going to cherry pick and do certain things really beautifully. How many times have you been forced to handle a really special case, and it made it much more ugly? Well, guess what? We don't handle the special case that's ugly. That's our philosophy. Now we have to, if we fight like everybody, what I compared it to is a light tank in a battle does not fight in the same way as a heavy tank. A light tank has to use its mobility. I have victory from God, but anyway, we made a decision early on. We're going to cherry pick and do the best cherry picking we can possibly do. So the Red Sea file system is cherry pick. We have several. If you look at how the file is stored, the graphics are at the bottom and they're binary, and then the top is the ASCII. If you wanted to expand, if you wanted to grow the file, you would have to shift the graph. Let's say you wanted to add a line of text down here. Normally, a file system lets you do that, but if we have to move the graphics, that's not an option. And then also, these files are stored compressed if they have a .z, and so that means the whole file has to be accessed. So in countless reasons, we have to do whole file access, and so we build the file system. The Red Sea file system is made for whole file access. So we want to do cherry picking, and as a matter of fact, what we might do, I might say, you see these 20 games? That's all I want to do. If you come to me and say it won't do something else, I'll say, sorry, it does these games, and that's all I want to do. That's pretty close. I tell people that I'm done, and they don't have any. They think I'm being silly. But what I mean is, as far as I'm concerned, it's fully tested, and it meets the satisfactorily. It satisfactorily meets the purpose. The purpose is to do these games and do them well, like the best cherry picking you could possibly do, with the nicest, most beautiful code. So also my hymns, I guess. But anyway, but I'm just trying to explain we fight like a light tank. They fight like a heavy tank. You know, the Commodore. Think about the Commodore. Back in 1982, NASA had mainframes, and of course nobody did a floating point. You didn't put a professional floating point library into the Commodore that would do matrix math and stuff like that. Well, duh, it's a Commodore. It's not some of it you might think was resource limitation, but what if NASA designed the Commodore ROM? What if NASA designed the Commodore ROM? How would it be different? How would NASA have made the Commodore 64 ROM different? Because NASA gets respect and the Commodore does not. And if that's true, how would NASA design it differently? So so somebody made a ISO file for a text adventure. Let's see if I can get it working. Uh-oh, what if I changed it since then? On some game systems, they had cartridges. There's kind of an analogy. The person who, I hope I didn't make these outdated. I might, oh well. Here's a text adventure. So he distributes it as an ISO. Now, some people wonder why I don't use Git. It should be pretty obvious to where's the ISO? So this person didn't learn anything about TempleOS, and they brute force. It's almost as though they made a bare metal program that which is an interesting approach. This is very close to brute force bare metal. He bypassed all of, he didn't make it native. And that's one of the, I said I wanted to ban, or I wanted to discourage porting. And I think, oh well. I don't have I don't mind, I don't care about this. But if TempleOS is really different, then, damn it, where's the ISO? I could swear he has an ISO. I guess I have to read this. There it is. Okay, let's just do that. Save. Okay, so I saved the ISO. Now, edit virtual machine. This is a little bit tricky. Let's go to TAD, downloads, demo ISO. Okay. Save. So you could distribute okay, my CD-ROM is a little bit broken. I think I have to it had some unsuccessful TUV, let's say W probe. I'm just going, I think it tried to mount it. Drive W. It worked, okay. So, I guess we can read me. So I went to a download site. I got an ISO, and I guess I have to read that. Download, boot TempleOS. Use mouse to increase the size of the terminal window. CD, okay. Include FOTS advent. Okay, so include, then we say advent. Okay, so you're at the end of a road, east. You're inside a building, okay. West, you're at the end of a road. South, you're in a valley. Okay, so this represents a distribution mechanism. This is basically almost a bare metal brute force. It barely, I don't really have a problem if somebody wants to, as a matter of fact, that's good. So I gave a lecture on this is bypassing all the graphics. If you wanted to do your own graphics and use none of my stuff, that's fine. As a matter of fact, that's what we want, is we want to bring people back to the land. It's kind of like being put on an Indian reservation. We want to get people off the reservation back. Well, I don't know if that's a good analogy. Anyway, so the Commodore 64 was direct hardware access, and if people want to bypass everything and do it directly, I don't care. Maybe you're being foolish. So that guy definitely, well, he didn't bypass everything, but anyway. So if you want, I said I wanted to ban third-party libraries, but if you want to take them with you on the ISO, so if you get a third-party library and you put it on your ISO, that's okay. I don't care. Maybe I don't want to say that. Maybe that's bad, and we don't want third-party libraries. But now, what about the issue of viruses and stuff like that? This model of distribution, with the Commodore 64, there was one dependency, the ROM. The only thing you depended on was the Commodore 64 ROM, and you brought everything else to the table. So if we did have commercial software, then it could be sort of like you don't install it. I think we want to encourage not installing. One of the things that I do frequently is do a backup to a CD-ROM, and if I like to copy my whole drive, and if I never installed stuff, that would be great. If when you use a game, if you just use the ISO, that's great. That's awesome. That's ideal. Maybe you want to save your games, so I guess you start putting some stuff in your home directory. One of the things that's most important, people should do backups. They should know how to do backups. I'm a big, I want to encourage it. It makes all the difference in the world if you have peace of mind from doing backups and restoring from backups. So instead of worrying about virus protection, we teach people to do backups in 5 minutes every day. A complete backup in 5 minutes. If you're I wrote 100,000 lines in 10 years. You're probably not going to have that much stuff to back up. The reality is, if you have low resolution, then you don't have big files. There's no reason to have big files. So everything stays tiny, and you have way more room than you need. And I banned multimedia. One of my fundamental principles was in 1983, when I was just beginning to program, this really made me angry. The reason it made me angry was, no, they're just playing a movie. And this really made me angry. And I have banned multimedia. I do not like the way Windows has you do sound is to do a WAV file. At least it used to 10 years ago, 15 years ago. you do a WAV file. It's like, who the hell has a 1930s radio recording studio to make clip clop horse noises? With the Commodore, we did it with frequencies and stuff. And so what we want is frequencies and stuff like that, and not a data file that's multimedia. And so this is going to cut down on size. My song files are ridiculously tiny. Not that that's really very important, because it's not important. It does impact how fast you can do a backup, and if you do a backup every day, then it begins to be important. So these are all ridiculously tiny. They're compressed and they're also ridiculously tiny. That's kind of cool. So I think I'm going to get another soda. So let's see. So let's see. So I did, I have, let's say I have 50 meg after 10 years of work. So, do you know how quickly you can back up 50 meg? It's really cool. Okay, we're doing. So sometimes I delusionally think they're talking to me. I waste a lot of time arguing with ridiculous 6 months still cannot cross compile. If somebody tried to make my code compile outside, that would be impossible. So let me talk about that. Well, so there's a video on I've talked about this many times. So that's proof that it's anyway. I'm posting a video for you to watch. That proves that it's 100% open source and that I wrote a compiler. Basically, in the video, you download the 2 meg version, you delete the binaries, and then you recompile them, and it proves that it's 100% open source. You download the 2 meg version from my website, you delete the binaries, and then you recompile them. These are all the binaries. This is the CD-ROM version of kernel.bin. This is the old master boot record. This is the stage 2 master boot record. Anyway, let me orient you. There are 2 ahead of time modules. The kernel has to be compiled ahead of time, and the compiler has to be compiled ahead of time. The remainder is compiled just in time. So one of my goals is minimum ahead of time. I don't really try that hard. In other words, in theory, we want to keep the kernel small. There's also a practical limit, which is the 640K limit. But we're in the early days, I had a bad compiler, and it looked like I might have a problem with the 640K. But now we're nowhere near 640K problem. As a matter of fact, let's see where we are. Oh, let's go to the memory overview. So right now the kernel loads in at 7C up to 3.4, and we have enough room to go all the way up to 96. So we have tons of room for the kernel. The kernel is and then at that point we would have a limitation. So we could put, in other words, we could make the kernel a lot bigger. There's no natural boundary for the kernel. Since everything is ring 0, kernel is meaningless. I got smart. In the early days, I called it OS main, but kernel, even though it's not accurate, is a better business decision. It's a better business decision to call it kernel than to call it OS main, even though it's ring 0 only. Sometimes you have to say, "What, are you nuts? You think I'm gonna make suicide?" Now at least I have a lot clearer head, and I don't make stupid mistakes. So there's two modules that are compiled ahead of time: kernel and compiler. Now if you want to make a binary, I'll tell you this once, but never again. Let's see if you want to make this into a binary. Okay, now I used to have a mechanism to include the current. Maybe, I don't know if we still have that. I used to have a way. It's kind of ridiculous. Let's see. I used to have a way to, okay, currently we have +R. Currently, these are all the symbols in Atom symbol table. And what I used to be able to do was, you see, we have a header problem. We have to have headers for all these files. And I used to allow binary, but now I don't. And so there are no headers to be had. But I used to have an import. I used to import the Atom symbol table. I had a way of doing it, which is using the current symbol table for the next symbol table. So I used to have import hash table, but I got rid of it, didn't I? Okay, so now I have not very much enthusiasm to, oh hell no, we're not doing all that. So we don't have header files, so we have to extern I'm glad it's difficult because I don't want people to make binary files. Okay, so external, no, we want to call, these are imports. Import. Oops. And, okay, I think we have to say put jar. Printf, do we have to do print? It's probably going to ask us for print. Okay, now we say compile test .cpp. Expect, uh-oh, okay, it gets worse. This is kind of cheating. These don't matter. The let's see. No. I could include this. Crap. Okay, so we now have test.bin and it is C3. Is that tiny or what? Now watch this. Now we say load. That has graphics in it. Test. Ho 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 ho. Okay. So I win the world. So I do not want binary. Why? Because that's just confusing, and there's no reason for it. Why would you do that when you could just do this? And what's wrong with source code? Now you don't have to teach people what an object file is. You don't have to teach them what a binary file is, executable. All you have is source code. You don't have those files cluttering. Those files don't clutter. It's just like you press F5 in the, just imagine pressing F5 in the IDE. Somebody wanted me to explain why my compiler's fast. Anyway. don't know if I'm going to read these on TV. Unmounted film. Oh, it's dead. Oh no. Okay. So what was I going to do? I was going to go to here. That's weird. So, what else should we? So, it's natural when I say that I set 100,000 line limit. People think I'm worried about binary size. Actually, I don't really care about. I'm not interested in memory. What I'm interested in is cognitive. I'm interested in seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I want this to be small enough that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, let's just go through a few of these. It's a page, it's a page, it's a page. Some of these are big. So anyway, I hope that's few enough. Somebody was talking about Hoffman coding. When I was at Ticketmaster, Denny handed me a magazine with LZW compression, and I shrugged and I did it. I pirated software back then, and I didn't know anything was wrong with it. I just, magazine with LZW. Then I heard some rumor that somebody tried to do Hoffman coding, and I assume, I don't know what's wrong with that. But so LZW was patented. Now it's not patented. Denny wanted me to, at Ticketmaster I did file compression, and at Ticketmaster it was a big fancy program that did multiple files into a module. This is just the core part that came from the magazine. I kept the part that came from the magazine. And my files, as a matter of fact, are individual. They are not, you can't merge together into a module. I guess ISO files are the, I guess on Linux you have tar. You have tar on Linux. I guess on here we do ISO files. Just recently I made Red Sea. Anyway, so I'm not interested in binary file size. I mean, I want to keep it small. But that's not my. Well, there is one thing that bothers me right now. Just the other day, I was looking at. Oh, I moved it. This switch statement has a 0 and a 255, and mine doesn't do terrorist. Would you call it terrorist? Not terrorist. It doesn't do. It doesn't use ifs. It only does a big. It only does an array of offsets. So it's a shame. It's a shame to have 255 words when I'm only using like 3. That bothers me. Normally I don't think about it. I don't really think about saving binary size. Now, might wonder if I could fit the whole thing into the 640K. The kernel goes to 34, and we're clear all the way up to 96. But as it turns out, the compiler is 1C. Okay, so if you can fit everything in the 640, then you can boot from USB or a variety. A lot of good things can happen if you can put it in 640, but I can't fit everything in 640. I made a distro that puts the compiler down in the low memory. I have to be careful that I don't put any private files. There's a debug distro. And I can show it to you. Why don't I do that? Oh no, I can't show it to you. Okay, so the debug distro, I can boot on my native machine, and it brings me to a prompt. On this machine, I can't boot natively. Okay, so here's the distinction. It's not hard to get the first stage booted because you can use the BIOS, but to get the second stage, you have to have a working driver for the disk. To get the second stage, you have to have a working driver for the disk. That's not the BIOS. And basically, it's no longer possible to use a driver. I no longer have a working driver. The hardware, they sort of banned. Well, they did not enable ports for accessing the disk. I think they could have, but they didn't want to. With the UEFI and stuff, there's a clampdown. They added secure boot. They're really busting balls, and that's when I got the big guns, and I got Mr. God. You guys are going nuclear. Fuck you. I'm getting God on your ass. That's what I said to the CIA. So, I shall return, like Douglas MacArthur. Douglas MacArthur said, I shall return. I'm going to come back with, and then we're going to be booting natively again. Anyway, so this debug distro basically puts as much as possible into the first module, so that it makes a RAM disk. Normally the stage 1 boots so the stage 1 uses the BIOS to load kernel.bin, and I made a distro that goes ahead and combines the compiler.bin and starts to combine some of the files. It starts combining these files into a RAM disk that bloats this up to whatever it is, 7. So I start adding files to the kernel, making a RAM disk attached to the end, and then when it boots, it can't boot everything. I can't fit everything into the kernel in the 640, but at least I get the compiler. And if I have the compiler, then I can use a command line. The command line is operational, and so I can do my calculator operations. I can read and write to ports. So if I have a working command line, I can start investigating what's broken, and so that was the debug distro. I can generate that and burn a CD, and then it makes a stage 1 that has the compiler module and a bunch of and a few, and it's as much as it can fit. And anyway, so that's what that is. That debug distro. So I want my users to be able to do a backup with a script. Currently, VMware does not connect me to the CD. If I try to burn a CD-ROM, it does not route me. It does not route me all the way to the CD-ROM. It requires a certain protocol, and we don't have that, so we can't burn a CD-ROM. I think I put that on my list of demands. I know I did. Anyway. So it's nice when you can burn a CD-ROM really easily. I like CD-ROMs. I don't like memory because you write over on top of it. It's no good to overwrite your backups. Which CD-ROMs are cheap, and you can have complete backups. I assume that if it took me 10 years to accumulate 50 meg, that nobody should have too much more. That's kind of silly to say that, but I think I'm going to bed. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty tired. All of a sudden, I get really tired. I stay up for, whoa, what's going on here? Oh. All of a sudden I get really tired and I go to sleep.